Hello, and welcome to our Family Services Soar Over the Luncheon. Thank you to all of our sponsors who have made today possible, and with thanks to our title sponsor, TEP, and our presenting sponsor, Tucson Federal Credit Union. Together with our sponsors and our generous donors, we have met the $10,000 challenge match from TEP, raising over $39,000 for our family this month in April. Thank you for helping to make this happen. Let's hear now from our lead sponsors.
My name is Miranda Jackson. I work at Tucson Electric Power. I'm a civil transmission engineer. My family motivates me. It took quite a few people to get me here, but especially my mom. People depend on electricity, whether it's hospitals, nursing homes, people with medical conditions. Anybody and everybody uses electricity through transmission lines and through substations and distribution lines. People depend on it.
Tucson Federal Credit Union supports our family services mission to eliminate homelessness and strengthen our community. We believe that a strong community is essential in helping each Tucsonan reach their full potential. TFCU supports organizations like our family because we want to have a positive impact on everyone in our community. We support our family's programs for homeless youth because they provide comprehensive services that meet the needs of each unique individual. The Reunion House Shelter is a safe house for abused, homeless, and runaway teens, and it's the only shelter of its kind in southern Arizona. Support from the community and TFCU helped our family provide a safe and supportive home for 250 homeless teens last year. Our family services support for homeless families is a critical option they offer to families experiencing homelessness. The program ensures that family will stay housed while they take advantage of work and education assistance, counseling and skill development with the long-term goal of self-sufficiency. We thank you, our family services, for supporting Tucson's most vulnerable population.
Thank you, Susan and Tucson Federal Credit Union, and thanks again to TEP for your very generous support of our efforts, especially this month. We are excited that all of you were able to join us today. We will take you on a tour of our new Baines campus on Alvernon so you can have a glimpse of our new home. Joan Service from Arizona Housing Coalition will join us for a discussion on the housing crisis in Arizona. And you will hear firsthand from our staff on how your support impacts their daily work in serving the community. We've missed seeing you this past year and look forward to when we can safely see you again. Although we have many of our staff still working from home, they have barely missed a step in making sure our clients and community receive the services needed. We are slowly welcoming more of our staff back into the building, and one day we look forward to welcoming you into our space as well. Our family has grown this past year as we added funding to support more of our neighbors who are experiencing homelessness. Today, we are a staff of 72 strong and still growing. Our staff are some of the most passionate, hardworking people who work tirelessly to carry out our mission and who make a difference in the community day after day. Those staff have served 126 clients with day one funding, the 5-year, $2.5 million grant we received from Jeff Bezos, and 71 youth from the Youth Homeless Demonstration Project grant that we were awarded in October with a multi-year $1.6 million grant. We've also served hundreds of other individuals in our programs such as Reunion House, Street Outreach, Emergency Shelter, and Rapid Rehousing. On average, our family houses 445 individuals each night, an increase of nearly 100% in just 18 months. Our Center for Community Dialogue and Training program has adapted over the past year to all virtual events. They've continued to provide services to over 3,200 individuals through community mediation services, trainings, and workshops, and even hosted 8 community dialogue events and 4 facilitation and planning events. The center most recently served as the program to support the City of Tucson and the Reed Park Zoo Community Conversations to assist in the final recommendation process for the City of Tucson Mayor and Council as to the future of the expansion of the park in the zoo. So that was just really a very quick snapshot of some of what we have been up to in the past year. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Hazel Heinzer, our family board chair. Hazel started with our family many years ago as an intern and then a volunteer, and for the last 6 years has been a very active board member and currently serves as our board chair. So Hazel, over to you.
Thanks, Beth. In this past year, to help with the effects of COVID, our family has received in grants and contracts over $900,000 in funding. All of this support, the support of our donors, foundations, and corporations, has enabled our family to continue to serve our community with full safety precautions in place. What we cannot predict is what will happen when the eviction moratorium is lifted on June 30th and the effects it will have on our community. Our family had a conversation with Joan Service from the Arizona Housing Coalition to discuss the housing crisis.
All right. Well, good afternoon and welcome to Soar over the Luncheon. We are here today with Joan Service from the Arizona Housing Coalition. Welcome, Joan. Joan, would you take a moment and tell us what you do and who you are with the Housing Coalition?
Sure. So as mentioned, my name is Joan Service. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Housing Coalition. We are a statewide professional association working to end homelessness by advocating for safe, affordable homes for all Arizonans. Our family services is a member of the Arizona Housing Coalition, and we try and amplify all of our members' voices at the federal, state, and local level.
Wonderful. And today we asked Joan to join us so that we could talk a little bit more about eviction and eviction prevention. And with that, I'm going to jump right in and start asking her a few questions. So Joan, could you talk about what the current status of the federal moratorium on eviction is and how it's impacting Tucson?
Well, let me just preface by saying everything about evictions are just it's a lose-lose-lose situation. The tenant loses, the landlord loses, and the community loses. It's not a fun conversation, but a necessary one. And frankly, one that's been ripe for reform before the pandemic. And really the pandemic has shown us that there's a lot of work to be done. But in terms of the moratorium, we're so pleased that the Biden administration has extended the eviction moratorium. If you all remember, the Center for Disease CDC enacted the eviction moratorium in response to the public health crisis, and that was set to expire at the end of March. But President Biden extended that to June 30th of 2021. And with that eviction moratorium continuation, there's also some greater enforcement and protections for both the landlords and the renter. Ultimately, to be protected under the moratorium, the renter has to submit a declaration, a signed declaration to the landlord. This whole conversation really needs to be strengthening between the landlord and the tenant. So the tenant has to sign a signed declaration to be protected under this eviction moratorium and really be in good communication with their landlord. But in terms of how it's impacting Tucson, goodness, communities across the nation, across Arizona are definitely impacted to the extent that we know. There's some preliminary data points, but I'll share that that what's happening is that renters are having a hard time leasing up new units because of that moratorium in place. So people aren't obviously getting evicted, and so we're having a hard time getting folks who do want to rent placed into housing. Ultimately, from courts to constables, really, we're all trying to get a really good assessment as to how many folks this eviction moratorium is impacting. But there's only a few data points to address that.
I think it's important to understand as well that when people talk about this moratorium, they just naturally assume that they're covered. And that's not true, correct?
Correct. You have to complete that signed declaration, and you also need to apply for rental aid.
So who is eligible for rental assistance?
So that's, that's another, onion that needs to be peeled. Ultimately, there's a lot of rental assistance programs that have come out of all of the different federal COVID-19 relief packages under CARES and under the most recent American Rescue Plan. And to be clear, there was rental aid programs across Arizona before COVID. Most often it's been administered by our community action agencies. Ultimately, they all have different eligibility requirements. And frankly, rental aid is helpful for both the renter and the landlord. A lot of the different rental aid programs have similar eligibility, and that is, you have to be at risk of homelessness or having some kind of housing instability. And then most recently with the COVID-19, you have to show that your household has been impacted by COVID-19, whether it be through loss of employment or because of the health crisis. I think a lot of times people are prioritizing folks who have been, loss of income for over 90 days. Let me also share that, the renters and households that are most impacted by this COVID-19 are the renters of color. So I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit, but ultimately this is most borne by our low-income communities, and renters of color have really seen the most dramatic impact of this eviction conversation.
Sure. That's a great point. Do you have an approximate number of how many Arizonans are currently behind on their rent?
Again, a great data point, or a great unknown, but we do have some data points to that point. According to the National Low-Income Housing Coalition and the University of Arizona's Innovation for Justice program, there are at least 210,000 Arizona households at risk of eviction. So when that moratorium ends at June 30th, there are going to be a flood of evictions being carried out. Now, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit later, but evictions are still occurring, but the moratorium only protects households that are being evicted because of not payment of rent. Okay. Nationally, we have the U.S. Census Pulse survey data that shows that there's about 10.7 million adults living in rental housing that are uncertain, or not caught up on rent, and uncertain if they can pay their rent. So that equates to about 15% of adult renters. And again, renters of color are most feeling this great hardship. And we're talking a lot about renters and the eviction, but there's also, homeowners that are impacted by the COVID-19 epidemic or pandemic. And I'll share that most households that are homeowners often have a higher income than renters. But even that's the case, there's an estimated 9.5 million adults that are not caught up on their mortgage payment.
Those numbers are overwhelming, Joan.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about what happens when the moratorium ends, but first I want to know a little more about what eviction prevention dollars are available to help those that are behind, and how do people even find out about those dollars?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there are several eviction prevention programs across the state of Arizona. Right now, at the start of the pandemic, the Arizona Department of Housing was kind of administering the eviction aid or prevention aid, and also connecting folks with the community action agencies. Right now, it's under the latest federal relief package. It's been transferred over to the Department of Economic Security, and that makes sense because they're also administering the unemployment insurance, and they've got kind of a good beat and already established a relationship with households that are struggling because of the pandemic. But in terms of how much dollars are available, I think the last COVID-19 relief package passed by Congress had about $25 billion of rental aid available. Ultimately, we at the Arizona Housing Coalition, we're tracking that information as to what programs still have funds available, and it's taken a while to get the money out the door. But if you visit our website, it's azhousingcoalition.org/COVID-19. You'll see a tracking sheet of all the different programs that have emergency rental assistance, what they're, how those programs are specifically eligible for, because there are programs specifically for geography or for veterans or for seniors or for, different populations. So, and we also are tracking if they have any rental aid left available. Ultimately, we're really excited with the Biden administration really prioritizing this kind of need for rental aid. Rental aid not only is helpful for responding to COVID-19, but it's also really incredibly helpful to make sure that anybody who needs any kind of assistance in housing there's a strong push coming from the White House to make sure that anybody who needs any kind of rental aid will get that rental aid. It's basically transitioning the Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher program to a universal Housing Choice Voucher program, which we're really excited about. It's going to take a lot of political and community will, but yeah, definitely something we're excited about.
That's great information, Joan. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that when our family received an amazing gift from one of our local churches, Casas Adobas, for $100,000 for eviction prevention, and when the community found out, we had an overwhelming response. And of course, that money is gone. So knowing that there are other resources to tap into is just so helpful. So thank you. Could we go back into what will happen when the moratorium ends and just talk a little bit more about how the community will be affected?
And really, to respond to that, it's going to be a little bit of a crystal ball. That is the kind of great unknown. Now we know, hearing from our friends at the courts and at the judicial system, we know that the writs of restitution, basically the legal procedure to evict somebody from their house, that those have been stacking up. Because again, landlords can file those eviction notices. They just can't, the constable can't come knocking and evict them, especially as it relates to non-payment of rent. Now they can be evicted for other issues like, not adhering to the landlord-tenant agreement, but ultimately, the protections are in place just if you're not paying your rent because of COVID-19.
Okay.
So when that moratorium is lifted, ultimately we're quite fearful at the Arizona Housing Coalition that we're going to see a significant increase in homelessness. We've seen some really conservative estimates of about 16% increase in street living homelessness, which we've already seen. Arizona has already seen a significant increase in folks who are experiencing homelessness. So to hear about it on a conservative level, 16%, we know that that's quite conservative. So we're really concerned because we don't have affordable housing. We don't have enough shelter bed availability. And so we really need to have a all-in approach to addressing this housing insecurity issue that we're really about to face. We need more shelter beds. We need more affordable housing. I mean, that's really, when we talk about how do you end homelessness, it's affordable homes are definitely part of that equation. And then really that community support, which I know our family services gets, you guys get that community support. So that's going to be, those two critical elements that we're really that need to happen, and we're fearful about what's going to happen come June 30th. Ultimately, we're hoping that Congress takes significant action under the current administration, looking at federal HUD programming and the infrastructure conversation. But even then, it's just going to take time for policies in Washington to hit Arizona streets, and so we need significant help, significant investments in addressing housing insecurity, and we're quite concerned.
So, Joan, what else can we do to help? And what else can our constituents who support our family do to help?
Sure. So even before the pandemic, we've been long saying that, it's not even a Chicken Little conversation. The sky is falling. We do have an affordable housing crisis on our hand. That's felt across Arizona. It's felt across the Pacific Southwest states. We don't have enough federal housing programs, and some of the kind of older formulas have negatively impacted quite growing community like Arizona. We have a lot of folks coming to Arizona, and we don't have enough affordable housing. So at the Arizona Housing Coalition, we have prioritized seeing a stronger state investment. Obviously we have a new administration that really understands the importance and value of home. And then our local advocates, our city councilmen and women, the mayors, they really understand the importance of affordable housing and addressing homelessness, because again, all politics are local, and they see it firsthand. What we at the Housing Coalition are really prioritizing and encouraging not only our family services, but your members and your supporters and your donors, is to take an active stance at the state legislature. Contact your senators and your representatives and ask them to do one of two things. One, we are asking for folks to restore the State Housing Trust Fund, which is a fund that was created in the early 90s. And it's a very flexible fund that meets the housing security, instability challenges that Arizona faces. At one point, it was up to about $30 to $40 million. But during the last Great Recession back in 2008, 2010, it got swept and is capped at $2.5 million. It's now been 10 years later, and $2.5 million is not enough money to address the housing insecurity.
Sorry about that. We're obviously having a small technical glitch. We were close to the end of Joan's interview with Kimberly, and so we'll just move forward with our small technology hiccup here. I want to thank Joan for joining us today and sharing some really important information. This whole eviction prevention and eviction crisis has been very confusing. And so thank you, Joan, for helping to explain and share your thoughts on where we're at with the crisis. I just want to add and say that I'm very proud of the work that our family has done in the last 13 months around prevention, eviction prevention, around being able to provide some COVID relief dollars to some of our clients who lost their jobs, had reduced hours, and how we were able to step up thanks to the community stepping up and helping to provide those dollars, along with some of the dollars received through the CARES Act initially, and now through the Biden administration plan going forward. Like Joan said, we're very nervous about what's going to happen on June 30th and the months and probably years to follow as we continue to grapple with the lack of affordable housing. Joan's call to action that she was just mentioning before we had our technology problem about working on increasing and restoring the Arizona Housing Trust Fund. We will be sending out an advocacy action alert in response to Joan's call to action in the next few days. So please keep an eye on your email for that alert, and hopefully you will join us and join others around the state asking our state legislature to work on restoring the Arizona Housing Trust Fund. Moving forward, one of our big accomplishments that we've had at our family service in the last 6 months was the opening of our new building, the Leonard Baines campus at Alvernon, named for Leonard Baines, Leonard being the former executive director of the Family Counseling Agency. So I'd like you to join us now for a virtual tour of our new home. We're just queuing up our video here, so just a second. So right here is the front door. You see the Leonard Bain campus as we welcome you into our beautiful and spacious reception area for clients. We do have some clients coming in now for intakes, but majority of our services are being done off-site. So this is our new lobby. This area that you're seeing right here will be set up with computer stations, allowing our clients to be able to come in and have use of computers to be able to search for jobs, email, search for housing, check their email and do some computer business that they might not have access to. This is our donor wall. So thanks to many, many people in the community, including the Connie Hillman Family Foundation and Al and Carolyn Lecoq for their support of our capital campaign. Now we're moving down in this kind of short hallway right here. We have the client quiet room funded by our friends at the Oak Tree Fund. It's a room where clients can come in and they've been out on the streets, it's been hot, they're stressed out, and they just need a quiet spot to maybe sit, gather their thoughts instead of sitting in our reception area. So it's a room for the kind of chill out and just be for a little bit. Along this corridor also is where our coordinated entry system that we're part of in the community works, where our staff are interviewing folks experiencing homelessness, helping them to find out what they're qualified for as far as housing assistance from our family or others. A workroom, we make lots of copies of different things for our clients as well as business. And so that's one of our spaces. Our HR office, greeting and onboarding our new staff. Moving down into a space that's kind of a staff only access. This is our large community room funded by the Elise Hendricks Trust. And this room is where obviously board meetings, staff meetings, committee meetings, community meetings will be held once we're kind of opening our building back up, where other groups that we're part of, that task force that we sit on around the community come and meet. Exciting staff storage room of finally having a place to store finance records and some of the development items that we have. This is a really great addition to our building. It's a quiet room for our staff. It's a reflection room. Can be used with any of our breastfeeding moms to have clean, quiet space for breastfeeding purposes. But also it's a place that staff can come if they just have had a really traumatic experience with a client, need to debrief, need to catch their breath. Need to just kind of sit back and have some moment to de-stress and do some self-care. This is one of our 3 water bottle filling stations. And we're really proud of the work that we've done in the building to be as environmental friendly as possible. Obviously, water bottle filling stations is one of those. We also have water retention pools to water runoff to water our plants. We're energy efficient in many ways, in just the basic construction that we have, all LED lights, all those sorts of things. We're walking through a space, my office door, where more of our admin staff is, our finance team, our development team, our front office staff space. So people who are kind of behind the scenes, doing the behind the scenes work at our family. That the work couldn't be done without all these great folks who keep us moving. Now we're moving into, we have 3 large storage areas. We're just going to show you one. So we have we go through lots of stuff, and we provide clients with some small amounts of food, household items such as sheets, towels, blankets, pots and pans, hygiene products, many of them donated by supporters like you and community groups. Our street outreach team provides lots of kind of a bag of necessary items to folks living on the streets. And so now we finally have a place to store them. What you're seeing right now, a quick look of our staff break room. So the kitchen area for our staff to be able to come in and get nourishment and have, again, a place to relax. And we're really proud of and love our courtyard. This is a place just for staff, again, for self-care, a place to get some fresh air, to debrief, a small fountain and sitting area for staff just to come out and, again, get some fresh air, relax a little bit, eat their lunch, have a meeting, talk to their peers, or again, just having a place for some self-care and some quiet. We're starting to approach more of where our direct service staff are located. First, they have a large copy room, office supply room, and a place that they can really spread out and do some of that paperwork that we all have to deal with. We have a few staff offices, private offices for some of our supervising staff, and then a large workstation area where our case managers, our intake staff, our direct service staff are located to do their work. Right now it looks pretty empty because most of these folks are working from home, although starting next week on May the 3rd, we have a small group of case managers starting to slowly come back into the office. Now that the majority of our family service staff have been vaccinated, we'll be moving more of our staff back in. So this is just a glimpse of where they work, because of course with our case managers, most of their work is actually done outside of the building. They're meeting with clients in their apartments, they're meeting them at court, they're meeting them at the Social Security office. And so they're out and about doing the majority of their work there. We have 4 of these client meeting rooms set up. We're just going to, I think, show you 1 or 2 of them in this video. And this is where maybe an intake is completed. It could be where a case manager is meeting with a client. As you can see, we have some screens set up for some COVID PPE protection for our staff and for our clients, and some limit on how many people can be in those rooms right now. Through the generosity of many community members, we've been able to fully support these rooms and the work that's done in them. Now we're coming into the back area of our reception area. There's another way to get out into that courtyard. We have bathrooms and water bottle filling and water fountain for our clients coming in, our reception staff. And it's a place that sometimes a client maybe is going to do some paperwork or something, and they can sit behind in that reception area and complete it, as opposed to going out into our lobby. And now we're back out to our lobby and the end of our tour. So thank you for joining us for the tour. I just want to point out we still have rooms that have naming opportunities if you would still like to be involved in supporting the building. We also have a few paver bricks out in the entrance area if you're interested in being a part of that. So I'm now going to turn it back over to Hazel.
Thank you for the tour, Beth. And we look forward to when all of you can come see the building in person. It really is an incredible campus. And now we would like to hear from the staff.
The kids we see at Reunion House are good kids because they do try to succeed. They find it a little difficult just because they're frustrated, but they do try to improve their lives in any way they can. I want these kids to know that they are valued because they do have a lot to offer. Like right now it's tough for them, but they're very smart and they're willing to get out there and take risks.
Most homeless people do want to be productive. They're either caught in their addiction or caught in the cycle of homelessness, and it's very hard to get out of. And it takes a continuous support system, especially for those who are single parents or those who have lived in poverty. It's hard. It's a vicious cycle to get out of, and it takes a lot of continued support.
Everyone at one point in their lives have felt lost, lonely, abandoned. To me, that would be what homelessness is, feeling lost, abandoned, not knowing where to go. No help at all, hopelessness. When we come into the picture, when they come to us, we provide that little bit of light from young adults all the way to older adults. Our family services hope for them, and to provide that hope provides them the tools to do what they need to do.
I was homeless. My experience being homeless was trying to find my next high sometimes because I wanted to get high. I was very lost in addiction, and sometimes that overtakes everything else until you realize that you really do want someplace to live and you really do want to be a productive member of society. I would want people to know that the homeless are not as scary as people make them out to be. They don't want to just fight, or they don't want to just hurt people. They're just trying to survive too, and they're just members of society too that are having a hard time with whatever choices they're making. Some people don't succeed, but for me it was wanting to be a good mother to my child and wanting a different lifestyle and realizing that I am good being me and that I don't want the addiction anymore, and that I want healed relationships with my family, and I want healthy relationships with people, and I wanted to make it. And once you want to make it, you will make it.
I see a lot of myself sometimes in these kids, and I remember at one time I felt helpless because I didn't know what to do. But to provide that and show it to a client, whether it's the mother or father, they know that they belong and they know they mean something. They're not the person that their parents told them or their friends told them. They're somebody, and they can succeed in all that they do. So there's hope. A specific client that I always remember, because he does call me when he comes into trouble, and he asks about, Joe, I need to get out of the pothole. Well, we all have obstacles in our life. And in Tucson, you know that there's potholes all over. And when you hit a pothole with your car, it ruins your car. However, the next day when you're driving down the street, you know that pothole's there. So you got to steer around it. That's what life is to these kids. They hit the hole, but they got to remember, you can go around it. However, you get stuck in the hole, what do? You ask for help, and there's no shame in that. When I look at my clients' eyes, I see despair. Again, feeling useless, no direction, don't know what to do. When I start talking to them, I can see them sitting up a little straighter, the little glow. It's just the beginning. And I'll let them know that too. I go, I see you're feeling better now. But we have work ahead of us, and you'll get there. I'm not the one making the difference for the clients. They make the difference for themselves. However, all of us are here to show them which direction to go in.
On a deeper level, we're giving our clients a sense of self-worth and self-respect and the empowerment and the acknowledgement that they can do this. With just a little bit of help, they can get back on their feet.
I hope these kids learn that they should never give up and always ask for help, and they will find it.
The supporters that help our family services, they help more than ways that they think. They're housing a family that was living in the park or living in their car. They're housing a single mom that got kicked out of the house because she's pregnant. That's why the supporters mean so much to our family services.
Less homelessness means that families become more productive and grow and enrich other families in our community.
In behalf of our family services and myself, I'd like to give a thank you to all the supporters out there. Without your help, there would be no hope for these homeless people. From young adults to older adults to their children, you provide hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining our family for Soar over the Luncheon. Thank you to all of our sponsors and to TEP and Tucson Federal Credit Union. We could not do the work we do without all of the amazing support from you. We appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. We are always available if you have any questions about our programs or how to help the community. Please do not hesitate to reach out to Beth Morrison or Kimberly Moyer for any information. Thank you and good afternoon.